Good evening. We are very glad to have you with us for this very special program. This program is special because with this evening's guest, we reach a plateau in our quest to find out who we have been and who we are. Our guest is one of the leading anthropologists and Egyptologists in the world, Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop. Dr. Diop was born in Senegal, and at age 23, he went to Paris, France, to continue advanced studies in physics. In 1966, the first World Black Festival of Arts and Culture, held in Dakar, Senegal, honored Dr. Diop and Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois as the scholars who exerted the greatest influence on black thought in the 20th century. Dr. Diop, who is also a linguist, is director of the Radiocarbon Laboratory at the Fundamental Institute of Black Africa at the University of Dakar in Senegal. In this first segment, Dr. Diop discusses the evolution of mankind.
Aujourd'hui, la science sait de façon sûre que l'humanité a pris naissance en Afrique, sous la latitude du Kenya, dans cette région qui est à cheval sur le Kenya, l'Éthiopie et la Tanzanie.
We are able to say scientifically today, to say with certainty that mankind was born in Africa on the latitude more or less of Kenya, and that area which comprises Kenya,
Éthiopie,
Ethiopia, and Tanzania.
Et qui va même jusqu'en Afrique du Sud, suivant un axe nord-sud.
And going on a north-south axis all the way south to South Africa.
Or, une humanité qui est née sous une telle latitude au niveau de l'équateur n'aurait pas pu survivre si elle n'était pas pigmentée noire dès son apparition.
So it's clear that any humanity that had its birth in that region could not have survived in an equatorial region without pigmentation.
La nature ne crée rien au hasard et elle a protégé l'humanité qui est née sous l'équateur en Afrique par un écran de mélanine. C'est ce qui fait que les premiers hommes étaient nécessairement noirs tant qu'ils n'étaient pas encore sortis de l'Afrique.
Nature doesn't do anything by chance, and it's for that reason that humanity, mankind that was born in a sub-equatorial region was given melanin to protect its skin. And it's for that reason that it is clear, it is certain that first man had to be a black man.
C'est seulement quand cette humanité va sortir de l'Afrique pour aller peupler le reste de la Terre qu'elle va changer d'aspect suivant les régions géographiques et que les autres races vont apparaître.
It is only after that race left Africa to people other parts of the world that had different climatic phenomena that man changed and became and took on different aspects, had a different look.
Ces premiers hommes comprenaient en réalité 6 spécimens. L'humanité, la nature a créé 6 spécimens d'hommes avant d'arriver à l'homme que nous sommes aujourd'hui.
Nature created 6 specimens of man before we got to man as we know him today.
Les 3 premiers spécimens, je n'ai pas besoin de les nommer, n'ont pas atteint, dans l'état actuel de la recherche scientifique, un potentiel d'expansion leur permettant de sortir de l'Afrique. Donc, ils n'ont jamais été hors d'Afrique, dans l'état actuel des recherches.
According to the scientific information that we have now, it appears that the first 3 of these species, which is not necessary to name, never acquired the potential or never arrived at the potential for exporting or leaving their own area.
Non, n'ont jamais atteint un potentiel d'expansion pour sortir de l'Afrique.
They never had the potential to expand and to leave Africa.
Yes. Les 3 autres sont sortis de l'Afrique.
3 others did leave Africa.
Le 4e et le 5e ont disparu.
The 4th and the 5th of these species disappeared.
Il ne reste que le 6e qui est l'homme que nous sommes.
and what remains is man as we know him. That's 6 species.
Le cinquième, c'est celui-là que j'ai projeté ici. Vous le voyez. Cet homme ressemble beaucoup à l'homme actuel, mais il n'est pas encore arrivé au stade de l'homme actuel.
C'est le 5e?
C'est le 5e.
This is the 5th of these species, which, as you will see, resembles very much man as we know him today.
Mais il n'était pas encore très différencié.
He was not yet but man as we know him today was not differentiated a great deal from this man.
Si vous le regardez, vous verrez que la différence qui le sépare de l'homme que nous sommes, c'est qu'il n'a pas de front. Vous voyez, les yeux sont presque à la place du front.
You will see that the major difference here is that the 5th species did not have a forehead. You'll see that the eyes are situated very close to the top of the head.
C'est très important ce détail, il faut le remarquer, il n'a pas de front. Donc il n'a pas, son cerveau antérieur est très différent du cerveau antérieur de l'homme actuel. Si vous le regardez, c'est comme s'il avait les yeux ici.
It's very important, this is a very important detail. It means that the brain inside was very different from the brain inside of man as we know him today.
Et quand on étudie son cerveau, quand on étudie l'anatomie de son cerveau, on voit qu'il n'a pas cette partie-là, ce cerveau antérieur.
And studying his brain,
ce qu'on appelle le lobe antérieur du cerveau, il ne l'a pas.
He does not have the anterior lobe of the brain. In studying, in anatomical studies, it has been determined that he did not have this anterior lobe.
C'est la grande différence entre lui et l'homo sapiens que nous sommes.
That is the major difference, the fundamental difference between Homo sapiens sapien, which is what we are.
Et ce spécimen n'a jamais pu sublimer la nature pour créer l'œuvre d'art.
This species was never able to overcome nature to an extent that he was able to create works of art.
Ensuite, je passe au suivant.
This next slide.
Là, nous arrivons à l'homme comme vous et moi. C'est l'homme du milieu.
And now we have the man in the middle is the man that we are.
C'est le crâne du milieu. C'était un noir. C'est l'homme que nous appelons dans la littérature, si vous voulez, préhistorique, l'homme de Grimaldi.
This was a black man. The skull is that of a black man, which we call in prehistoric history the Grimaldi man.
On sait que c'était un homme de morphologie noire. Quand on voit sa morphologie, on voit que c'était un noir. Vous voyez bien, la forme du visage est très typique. Et nous l'avons comparé avec un crâne d'Africain d'aujourd'hui. Le crâne de gauche, c'est un crâne de Malien que nous avons dans notre collection à Dakar, à l'IFAN. Et le crâne de droite, c'est le premier homme blanc qui apparaît sur la Terre, à la suite de la transformation de l'homme du milieu.
You can see in looking at the skull in the middle that the morphology of this skull is very much that of blacks. That is the skull of modern man. To the left of it, we have the skull of modern African man. It is one of those that is in our collection at the University of Dakar.
L'homme qui est à droite maintenant, on ne le verra que l'homme qui est au milieu est entré en Europe il y a 40 000 ans.
40,000 years ago, the man in the middle left Africa and went to Europe.
Il va vivre en Europe de moins 40 000 ans à moins 20 000 ans, et c'est pendant cette période d'adaptation à un climat extrêmement froid qui est très différent du climat actuel. Parce que c'est pendant la dernière glaciation que la Terre a connu et qui a duré 100 000 ans. Il va donner naissance, donc par mutation et adaptation, au troisième crâne de droite qui est l'homme de Cro-Magnon.
The skull at the extreme right of the screen is that of Cro-Magnon man. It was between 40 and 20,000 years ago that the man in the middle left Africa to go into Europe at a time during what is called the final or the last glaciation. The climate in Europe was extremely cold. It was much colder than it is now. And during this period of some 20,000 years, he underwent the adaptation to become what we know as white men.
Donc, c'est bel et bien. C'est l'adaptation de certaines informations qui a donné naissance, finalement, qu'on appelle conventionnellement la petite décodeur, l'homme blanc. Blanc est sorti du noir à la suite d'un processus d'adaptation à un climat froid. Et cela, les spécialistes aujourd'hui le savent dans leur fond, même s'ils ne le disent pas avec autant de...
Very clear to all the scientists in this field, even if they are only able to say it within themselves and able to say it publicly, that the man that we know conventionally to be a white man evolved from a black man over a period of 20,000 years of adaptation to a different climate. And if we are to say with any serenity, resting totally on scientific data, that is the conclusion that we must come to.
Donc, nous voyons bien que l'humanité, en sortant de l'Afrique et en s'adaptant aux différents climats de la Terre, a donné naissance aux différentes races. Voilà comment les races sont nées. Donc, la race est une notion géographique. Si le premier homme que vous voyez au milieu n'était jamais sorti de l'Afrique, il n'y aurait pas eu de différenciation raciale. L'humanité serait homogène et noire.
If the man that we see in the middle there had never left Africa to people other parts of the world, and if those people in other parts of the world in different climates had not, through the process of adaptation, become what they are in various regions of the world, all men would be homogeneous, and all men would be black.
Le reste de la Terre n'aurait pas été peuplé, serait désert. Et il y aurait eu une seule humanité noire cantonnée en Afrique. Et le reste de la Terre ne serait pas habité.
If that man had not left Africa, the rest of the world would have remained a desert, would never have been peopled.
Donc, voilà, vous voyez donc que j'ai répondu à la question que vous m'avez posée en demandant où se situe le noir dans l'évolution de l'espèce humaine. Je vous réponds qu'en toute rigueur scientifique, le premier homme de la Terre était un noir qui va se différencier pour donner naissance aux autres races. Voilà la conclusion à cette première question.
And so to answer precisely your first question, which is or was, to what extent or in what way do blacks figure in the origin of man, the answer is the first man was black. And it was he who gave birth to other races of the world.
You have knocked out my first 5 questions.
Vous avez annulé la nécessité de poser les 5 premières questions.
Si, il faut les poser parce que j'avais des choses, j'avais noté mentalement des choses auxquelles je voudrais répondre. Même poser-les rapidement.
You must still ask them, even if you do it quickly, because he has reserved other information in response to them.
Why was it not possible for mankind to have been born in many parts of the earth?
Pourquoi n'était-il pas possible que man soit né dans quelques centres dans le monde?
Justement, quand les études de paléontologie humaine n'étaient pas encore assez avancées, il y avait 2 théories qui s'affrontaient.
When human anthropology had not quite evolved to the extent that it has now, there were 2 theories that kept confronting one another.
La théorie selon laquelle l'homme est né en un seul endroit et s'est différencié pour donner naissance aux autres races, celle que je viens d'exposer, avec ses défenseurs.
There was the theory that he has just explained, that man was born in one place and became different as he peopled other parts of the world. That theory had its defenders.
Il y avait une autre, cette première théorie, c'est celle qu'on appelle toujours la théorie du monogénétisme, c'est-à-dire d'une seule origine de l'espèce humaine.
This is called a monogenetic theory. That is, that there was one source for mankind.
Il y a l'autre théorie maintenant, comme proposée, qui voulait que certaines conditions étant réalisées, qu'il ait existé un homme né en Afrique, un autre homme né en Europe, un homme né en Asie. Donc, l'homme aurait connu l'apparition de l'humanité, serait le résultat, si vous voulez, de plusieurs centres. L'homme, l'origine de l'humanité aurait connu plusieurs centres. Et on appelait cette théorie la théorie du polycentrisme, ou du polygénétisme.
The second theory is that of is a polygenetic theory, which believes or contends that man was born in Africa and also in Europe and also in Asia. In other words, that there were several locations in the world where man finds his origin.
Et que d'ailleurs, c'est cela qui pourrait expliquer leurs différences.
And it is that explains their differences.
Alors, cette théorie était même la théorie du sens commun. Je ne dis pas du bon sens, mais du sens commun. C'est-à-dire, il paraissait a priori, au premier abord, plus normal qu'il ait existé un homme au niveau de chaque continent.
That theory has made a certain amount of sense. Not that it made good sense, but it made a certain amount of sense. It would explain that there are different peoples in different parts of the world with different characteristics.
Mais lorsqu'on y regarde de près, il y a deux faits qui sont venus infirmer cette théorie.
But under closer scrutiny, there were two things that made this theory fall apart more or less.
D'abord, la nature ne passe jamais deux fois par le même point dans son évolution.
The first is that nature never strikes twice in its evolution. It doesn't ever hit the same place two times. Nature doesn't create twice the same thing. In the animal kingdom...
the same being.
The same being. In the animal kingdom, you can see that throughout the evolution of animals, a being was created, and it either disappeared or changed somewhat, or a new being completely was created, but never the same being twice. And to remain strictly scientific, it doesn't make common sense to say that man was created twice.
D'autre part, la recherche préhistorique a prouvé maintenant que c'est la thèse qui paraissait la plus invraisemblable, qui a triomphé maintenant au niveau de tous les scientifiques. Tous les hommes maintenant savent de façon certaine que l'homme a une seule origine, et que c'est dans cette même région du Kenya. Parce que c'est là que nous trouvons, si vous voulez, tous les stades antérieurs, tous les stades antérieurs.
It is in this region, that is this region in Kenya, where we find all of the most ancient evolutionary information. It's for this reason that scientists are now able to say, with certainty that at least they know that this is the case, that man could only have been created one time.
Tous les fossiles que nous trouvons à l'extérieur de l'Afrique, en dernière analyse, apparaissent toujours comme des fossiles plus récents que ceux trouvés en Afrique et qui leur correspondent.
All fossils that have been found outside of Africa have been found under close analysis to be much more recent than those found in Africa.
Et aucun autre continent que l'Afrique ne possède la série complète des 6 spécimens dont je vous ai parlé.
And no other continent in the world has the complete series of fossils indicating the 6 specimens that I spoke of before.
Je vous ai dit que les 3 premiers ne sont jamais sortis de l'Afrique. Ça veut dire que ni en Europe, ni en Asie, encore moins en Amérique, on ne trouve ces 3 premiers spécimens, qui sont le début de l'humanité.
These 3 specimens, which represent the very beginnings of mankind, cannot be found in Europe, they cannot be found in Asia, and of course cannot be found in America. They never left Africa. The complete set remains in Africa.
Donc, autant de preuves accumulées qui, aujourd'hui, donnent la certitude que l'homme est né en Afrique.
The accumulation then of the best information now makes it very clear that man had its origins in Africa.
Ici en Amérique, vous n'avez que le spécimen sapiens sapiens. On n'a pas trouvé dans l'état actuel de la science, sur toute l'étendue de l'Amérique, depuis la Terre de Feu jusqu'en Alaska, il n'y a qu'un homme moderne. Et l'Amérique a été peuplée par le détroit de Bering à la fin de la dernière glaciation dont j'ai parlé. Donc, il n'existe qu'un seul spécimen, le dernier ici en Amérique.
The only specimen, as we've seen on the slide, that appears in America is that of Homo sapiens sapien. America was peopled through the Bering Straits at the end of the final glaciation, and it is for that reason that we find only Homo sapiens sapien in America.
En Asie, on a l'Homo erectus.
In Asia, we have Homo erectus.
L'homme de Néandertal et l'Homo sapiens.
And the Neanderthal man and Homo sapien.
En Europe, également, on a l'Homo erectus, l'homme de Néandertal et l'Homo sapiens.
In Europe, we have the same, Homo erectus, Neanderthal, and Homo sapien.
Et tous sont sortis de l'Afrique. Les uns sont passés par l'isthme de Suez pour aller vers le sud-est asiatique, et les autres sont passés par le détroit de Gibraltar pour aller à travers l'Espagne, dans le midi de la France. Et à partir de là, ils ont irradié jusqu'au lac Baïkal, en Extrême-Orient.
Some of them left by the Suez Canal or the Isthmus of Suez to go into Asia and Eastern Europe, and some went by the Straits of Gibraltar up into the north and into Europe.
Et le polycentrisme est une théorie qui voulait absolument établir la hiérarchisation des races, qui voulait démontrer qu'il existe des races inférieures et des races supérieures.
This polycentric theory is, to that theory, it is essential, or it makes the effort to establish a hierarchy of races, and to indicate that some races are inferior to others.
En effet, si les trois races de l'humanité avaient des origines différentes, on aurait pu supposer que pour une raison ou une autre, il y a une hiérarchisation des capacités intellectuelles.
But if
Parce qu'ils n'auraient pas eu le même héritage.
But if man has the same origin, then of course there cannot be there can be no intellectual hierarchy, because all of the races of the world, the three races of the world, would have had the same intellectual history. Est-ce que j'ai bien traduit ça?
Je répète. J'ai dit que si les trois races avaient des origines différentes, on aurait pu supposer qu'elles puissent avoir des capacités intellectuelles différentes. Et donc défendre l'idée de l'inégalité des races. C'est clair? Ça?
If the three races had different origins, then one could say that they had different intellectual capacities, having had a different intellectual history.
Donc, on aurait pu défendre l'inégalité des races. Cette théorie, donc, est pour la défense de l'inégalité des races, la théorie du polycentrisme.
The polycentric theory, then, is essential to defending the notion that there are inequalities between the races.
C'est pour ça qu'elle a eu des défenseurs très acharnés.
It's for this reason they've had people that it has been defended so vigorously by people.
Mais la science l'a définitivement écarté.
But science has, without question, set it aside.
Donc, la théorie monogénétique, elle, montre que puisque la souche humaine est commune, que toute l'espèce humaine a les mêmes capacités intellectuelles, qu'elles soient noires, blanches ou jaunes. Je ne suis pas en train de montrer, par exemple, que le blanc est supérieur au noir. Ce ne serait pas que le noir est supérieur au blanc. Ce serait faux.
It's the monogenetic theory, then, that poses or will support the notion that because our origins are the same, we have the same intellectual capacities. I am not hoping to say, by saying that, however, that blacks are superior to whites. That would also be false.
Donc, aucune race n'est supérieure à l'autre.
No race is superior to any other.
Toutes les races ont les mêmes capacités intellectuelles.
All races have the same intellectual
Et
capacity.
justement, le lobe antérieur du cerveau dont je vous ai parlé est le même pour toutes les races.
The anterior lobe that I showed in the slide earlier is exactly the same for all the races.
On a fait des travaux extrêmement poussés, ici en Amérique, en Europe et partout, sur l'anatomie du cerveau.
The studies of the anatomy of the brain have been numerous and very extensive here in this country, in Africa, and everywhere in the world.
En Europe.
And in Europe.
Oui. Et on n'a jamais trouvé de différence significative permettant une hiérarchisation raciale, surtout au niveau de l'anatomie du cerveau antérieur dont je vous ai parlé.
And in no way has a difference any significant difference been found to indicate that there is some anatomical difference in the brains of the various races.
Surtout au niveau du cerveau antérieur.
And certainly not in the case of the forefront of the brain.
Donc, tous les biologistes savent ce que je dis en ce moment. Toutes ces analyses, les résultats de ces analyses sont concluants et tous ceux qui s'occupent justement de biologie humaine savent tout ce que je vous ai dit aujourd'hui sur ce point-là. Cette question-là aussi, au niveau de tous les scientifiques sereins, objectifs, est une question qui est acquise. Que les races ont les mêmes capacités intellectuelles. Mais il peut y avoir, l'une peut être momentanément dominée par l'autre, c'est tout. Dans l'Antiquité, les Noirs ont dominé les Blancs, comme nous allons le voir tout à l'heure. Par la suite, les Noirs, les Blancs ont pris le dessus, comme aujourd'hui.
All biologists and those scientists who are aware of this information know that there is no longer any question as to whether there is a superiority among the races. It is, however, possible that one race or another can dominate temporarily another race or other races. In antiquity, it was blacks who dominated, and that is perhaps not the case now.
No.
You have spent much of your life studying the history of Egypt. Who were the ancient Egyptians? How did they look?
Ici, cette reproduction est importante.
This is a very important reproduction.
C'est dans le tombeau de Ramsès III.
This is found in the tomb of Ramses III.
20e dynastie.
The 20th dynasty.
Vous avez le personnage de gauche.
The person on the left.
C'est le type général, donc, représenté par l'artiste égyptien lui-même.
This is the general type represented by the Egyptian artist himself.
Le second, c'est le type général de tous des Européens, si vous voulez, de tous les Occidentaux.
And the second person or personage is the general type of all the Europeans represented by the artist.
Le troisième, c'est le type général de tous les autres Noirs de l'intérieur du continent.
And the third personage is the general type representing all the other groups found in the interior of the continent.
Of Africa.
Of the continent of Africa.
Good evening and welcome to the final part of our interview with one of the leading international scholars in the fields of anthropology and Egyptology, Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop. Dr. Diop, a nuclear physicist, is director of the Radiocarbon Laboratory at the University of Dakar in Senegal. In this segment, Dr. Diop discusses a scheme designed to, well, Let's take a look.
This is a picture of the Piltdown Man, and it is to demonstrate to you the lengths to which certain anthropologists have gone to establish their theories. The Piltdown Man was created by a British anthropologist in 1912 by the name of...
Downson, c'est un géologue.
A geologist, I'm sorry. He was a geologist, Mr. Downson.
Il a fabriqué de toutes pièces ce fossile qui est faux.
He fabricated by piece this fake fossil.
Il l'a enfoui dans les sables du Sussex en Angleterre.
He dug in the dirt in Sussex in England.
Vous voyez bien, regardez bien, vous verrez qu'il a le front haut comme un homme moderne. Il est comme nous, il a les yeux et un grand front.
Like modern man, he has eyes and he has the forehead as modern man does.
Mais vous voyez, regardez sa mâchoire. Sa mâchoire est une mâchoire de singe, d'orang-outan, avec les deux canines. Regardez les deux canines, c'est une mâchoire de singe.
You can see that his mandible, I think it's called,
yes,
is that of a monkey.
Yes.
And his canines
yes,
are that of a monkey.
C'est en 1900, et justement, cet homme, ce spécimen, qui est un faux, avait donné naissance, dans le domaine de l'anthropologie physique, à la théorie des pré-sapiens. C'était pour démontrer que l'Homo sapiens est né en Angleterre.
From this fabrication grew a theory called the pre-sapien theory, which was manufactured to establish that this man was the predecessor of modern man.
Yeah. Et que donc l'homme est né en Europe.
And that, in fact, man had his origins or was born in Europe.
Et particulièrement en Angleterre.
And especially in England.
Et vous avez ici des défenseurs, je ne sais pas si je peux les citer, mais il y a des anthropologues américains qui ont épousé cette thèse-là et nous savons aujourd'hui qu'elle est fausse.
And there are American anthropologists who took this theory as their own and defended it, and we know today that it is false.
En France aussi, il y a eu des anthropologues qui l'ont défendue et nous savons qu'elle est fausse aujourd'hui.
And in France also there were anthropologists who defended the theory, and of course we now know it was false.
Et comment a-t-on su qu'elle est fausse? C'est parce qu'il y a un autre savant anglais de bonne foi, cette fois-ci, qui l'a analysé et qui a démontré sa fausseté.
And we know that it is false, or we learned that it was false by another anthropologist, English anthropologist, who analyzed it and discovered that it was in fact a fake.
C'est le professeur Oakley qui travaille au British Museum et qui a démontré la fausseté de ce spécimen en 1954.
It was in 1955 that Professor Oakley, working at the British Museum, analyzed this fossil and discovered it to be false.
Mais vous voyez, pendant près de 50 ans, le mal était déjà fait parce que la communauté scientifique était divisée en deux courants. Un courant défendant la théorie monogénétique et un courant défendant la théorie polygénétique appuyé spécialement sur ce spécimen.
But the bad had already been done. For 50 years, this was the theory that created the clash between the polycentric and the monocentric theories.
Donc nous voyons quand même qu'il y a des savants de bonne foi et leur action compense justement celle des autres. Et quand nous les rencontrons aussi, il nous faut les saluer au passage. C'est le cas du savant Oakley dont je viens de vous parler.
So we must give credit to those anthropologists or those scientists who are working with a clear head and a clear idea or objective spirit, and we must note them as we go along, as we must note Professor Oakley in this case.
You have spent much of your life studying the history of the ancient Egyptians. Who were the ancient Egyptians? How did they look?
Voilà, les Égyptiens anciens ressemblaient à cette tête que vous voyez. Voici le premier roi de la terre.
Here you have the first king of the earth, the very first. And the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, looked like this man.
Cet homme a des traits, si vous voulez, plus, comme nous disons, vous m'aviez dit tout à l'heure de ne pas employer un terme, mais sur le plan scientifique, c'est un terme consacré. En tout cas, il a des traits de la race noire plus marqués que celles de presque tous ceux qui sont ici dans cette salle.
You can see that he has those traits that are associated with the black, those features associated with the black race, which are even more pronounced than many of the people here. It was this man who unified the Nile Valley from Upper to Lower Egypt, and this was 3,300 years before Jesus Christ.
Yes. Je passe donc, ce que je vais dire avant de passer au suivant, c'est que vous allez le voir donc, déjà d'après ses traits, et les traits aussi des pharaons qui vont suivre.
You can see by his features and those of the pharaohs and kings that will follow it,
que les anciens Égyptiens n'étaient pas des blancs qui seraient devenus progressivement noirs et en perdant leurs traits.
You can see that they were not a people that were started as whites and became progressively more black.
Mais qu'au départ, c'était des noirs authentiques qui, à la basse époque, vont se métisser avec des blancs.
They were instead a black people, an authentic black people, but which never ceased to be blacks.
Donc, attendez, je dis en un mot. Donc, vous voyez que les anciens Égyptiens étaient des noirs comme tous les autres naturels de l'Afrique, c'est tout.
You can see that the first the Egyptians were black men, like black men that you see in Africa now.
Ici, cette reproduction est importante.
This is a very important reproduction.
C'est dans le tombeau de Ramsès III.
This is found in the tomb of Ramses III,
20e dynastie.
the 20th dynasty.
Vous avez le personnage de gauche.
That person on the left,
c'est le type général, donc, représenté par l'artiste égyptien lui-même.
this is the general type represented by the Egyptian artist himself.
Le second, c'est le type général de tous des Européens, si vous voulez, de tous les Occidentaux.
And the second person or personage is the general type of all the Europeans
Yes.
represented by the artist.
Le troisième, c'est le type général de tous les autres Noirs de l'intérieur du continent.
And the third personage is the general type representing all the other groups found in the interior of the continent.
Of Africa.
Of the continent of Africa.
Oui. Le quatrième, c'est le type général de tous les Sémites habitant l'Asie.
The fourth personage is the general type of all of the Semites living in that area of Asia.
Et ceci est un tableau ethnographique. Voilà les races qui existaient à l'époque, telles que les Égyptiens les ont connues, vues et représentées.
This is
De différentes races.
the different races represented by the artist, and these are the races that existed in his time as he saw them.
Nous sommes à 1200 avant Jésus-Christ.
We are 1,200 years before Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Donc, vous voyez que les Égyptiens ne se sont jamais confondus avec les Européens.
So
ni,
the Egyptians were never confused with the Europeans,
ni avec les Sémites,
nor with the Semites,
et qu'ils ne se sont jamais différenciés sur le plan de la couleur, n'est-ce pas, sur le plan ethnique des Africains.
and they never became different from, on an ethnic plane from the other Africans.
Regardez, ces reproductions sont assez significatives à ce point de vue.
So this is fairly significant from this point of view.
Or, cette image, c'est la première fois, depuis que Lepsius, c'est un relevé d'un savant allemand qui s'appelle Lepsius.
This was discovered by a German scientist who is called Lepsius.
Et vous ne l'avez jamais vu reproduit dans un autre ouvrage avant cette projection.
And before this, you have not seen this reproduced in any other form
Dans
or
un
work,
livre, dans
or
une
any
autre.
other work.
Vous voyez donc, c'est de cette manière que la science, n'est-ce pas, s'est écartée petit à petit de la réalité et de la vérité historique en ce qui concerne l'Égypte.
And so you can see how history departed little by little from the reality.
How did ancient writers describe the ancient Egyptians?
Tous les écrivains grecs et même romains de l'Antiquité ont déposé dans le même sens pour nous affirmer que les anciens Égyptiens de leur époque, pourtant qui étaient déjà très métissés, étaient des Noirs.
All of the writers of ancient Greek and ancient Rome agreed
Yes,
that
que
the
les
Egyptians of their epoch, of their time, were in fact black.
Or, cette Égypte-là, c'est l'Égypte de la fin, donc de l'histoire égyptienne.
But these were the Egyptians of the end of the great Egyptian civilization.
Et Jésus-Christ, ça fait donc une période de 900 ans.
For a period of some 900 years, beginning at the 4th century before Jesus Christ and going through the 5th century after, the Greeks were constantly witnessing to the fact that the Egyptians were black.
Donc, les Égyptiens sont considérés comme des Noirs depuis l'origine jusqu'à la fin de leur histoire.
So they would be considered black from their origins, from their beginnings, all the way to the end of their civilization, as is indicated by the first king, the slide which we saw.
Voilà. Alors, les autres, je vous les montre rapidement. Je passe rapidement là-dessus.
I will show you quickly the others.
Ici, vous avez Djoser, 3e dynastie,
You have-
2778 avant Jésus-Christ.
This is the 3rd dynasty of the Egyptian civilization here.
Disons 2800.
2800
Tout à-
BC.
Avec Djoser, tous les éléments technologiques de la civilisation égyptienne étaient déjà en place. Tout ce que nous admirons en Égypte, sous ce pharaon noir, existait déjà.
3e dynasty?
3e dynastie, avant les pyramides donc. La seconde, ça va être celle des pyramides.
Ok.
Eh bien, avec Djoser, tous les éléments de la civilisation égyptienne étaient déjà en place.
With this king, in the 3rd dynasty, all of the things that we admire the Egyptians for were already in place.
Nous verrons que c'est sous son règne que l'architecture en pierre de taille va être inaugurée, la grande architecture égyptienne.
The great Egyptian architecture was evolved under his reign.
2300 ans avant la naissance de l'architecture en Grèce. 2300 ans avant la naissance de l'architecture.
2,300 years before the birth of architecture in Greece.
Et aussi 2000 ans même avant la naissance, on peut dire qu'à cette époque-là, les Grecs n'existaient même pas encore dans l'histoire.
It can be said that at that point, the Greeks didn't even exist in history.
Yes. La mathématique, la
Mathematics,
médecine,
medicine,
tout était déjà présent sous ce pharaon.
everything was already in place during his reign.
Donc, la civilisation égyptienne dont nous parlons est née, n'est-ce pas, sous le règne de ces pharaons typiquement africains.
And so civilization, or Egyptian civilization as we know it, was born under the reign of these pharaohs.
Ici, vous avez le Sphinx.
This is the Sphinx.
Lors de la mission française qui accompagnait Napoléon, quand Napoléon est allé en Égypte, il était accompagné d'une mission de savants. Ce sont des Français qui sont comme ça sur le Sphinx, qui font des mesures.
These are Frenchmen who were part of on top of the Sphinx. They are measuring there on top of the Sphinx. They were part of a mission that accompanied Napoleon,
Au 19e siècle.
in the 19th century.
Vous voyez que le profil du Sphinx à cette époque-là était encore plus typiquement africain que maintenant.
You see that the profile of the Sphinx at that time was even was more authentically African than it is now.
Depuis, l'érosion l'a détruit encore un petit peu. Vous savez, le vent de sable constamment qui frappe le visage.
The wind and the sand has eroded the Sphinx considerably.
Et vous savez que le nez du Sphinx est au British Museum.
The nose of the Sphinx is in the British Museum.
Et on aurait pu le récupérer pour revoir un peu quel était le visage. L'Égypte pourrait très bien essayer de le récupérer, ça c'est au moins la moindre des choses.
And they are unable, the Egyptians are unable to have it back again to compare it with the Sphinx.
Mais peut-être que ces traits sont si typiquement africains que personne n'a envie de les reconstituer tels qu'ils étaient.
It's perhaps because the features are so typically African that no one wants to see that comparison be made.
When was the slide, this drawing rendered done?
Est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire la date de cette illustration?
2600 avant Jésus-Christ, c'est l'époque des pyramides. Ici, nous sommes sous la 4e dynastie. C'est le profil du pharaon Khéphren. C'est la 4e... Oui?
C'est pas le Sphinx qu'il veut savoir, c'est l'illustration à l'époque où Napoléon était là, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
C'était quand?
C'est 1800, à la fin du 19e siècle, fin 19e siècle.
The end of the 19th century.
Je passe. Ici, vous avez donc ici Amenophis Ier, vous voyez qu'il est typiquement africain. Donc, vous voyez que les pharaons ne se peignent pas toujours le corps en ocre rouge. C'est une habitude africaine. Tous les peuples africains, depuis la haute préhistoire, ont l'habitude de se peindre le corps en ocre rouge.
This is Amenhotep I, and you can see that this is here with his natural skin color. He is not painted.
Vous voyez aussi que ses cheveux sont crépus.
And you can also see that his hair is kinky.
Disons, c'est cette dynastie qui va conquérir toute l'Asie occidentale.
It is this dynasty represented here that conquers all of the Western world.
Yeah. Toute l'Asie occidentale.
All of Western Asia.
Et aussi toutes les îles de la mer Égée.
And also all of the Aegean Sea.
C'est une époque d'impérialisme africain.
This is the period of African imperialism.
À cette époque, c'est l'Afrique noire qui avait l'initiative historique.
It's at that point it is at this point that Africans had the imperial initiative.
Et dominé tous les autres peuples, soit de la mer Égée, donc de la Méditerranée orientale ou de l'Asie occidentale.
And they dominated all of the people from the Mediterranean all the way into the Far East.
Un pharaon de cette dynastie,
Pharaohs of this dynasty,
qui s'appelle Thutmose III,
who were called
Thutmose
III,
avait conquis 111 États.
Conquered
111 États au total.
111 states in all.
Il les avait conquis et qui étaient entrés il les a intégrés dans l'Empire égyptien.
And they made them part of the Egyptian Empire.
Ici, vous voyez Ramsès II et un Tutsi. La parenté est frappante aussi entre la coiffure du pharaon, la coiffure du Tutsi et le casque du pharaon.
Here you have Ramses II and a Tutsi warrior. It's remarkable the similarity between the Tutsi's hairdo and the helmet worn by the pharaoh.
Or, ce pharaon est encore un des plus prestigieux, justement, de toute l'histoire égyptienne.
He is certainly one of the most prestigious of the Egyptian pharaohs.
Vous voyez que des deux côtés, vous n'avez que la même réalité africaine, la même réalité anthropologique africaine.
And you see the same reality, anthropological reality, that is African, the similarities between the two.
Aussi, ça c'est le premier. Aussi, vous voyez, il est noir.
You can see another pharaoh who is also black.
Typiquement.
Typical of that time.
Donc, c'est le fondateur de la 11e dynastie.
This is the founder of the 11th dynasty.
La ville de Thèbes lui a voué un culte pendant 1000 ans.
for some 1,000 years, the city of Theb in Upper Egypt worshipped this pharaoh.
Ici aussi, vous voyez un peuple qui représente ces dieux en couleur noire, c'est Osiris, qui est toujours représenté sous les traits d'un homme noir.
Here you see the representation of one people who always indicated their gods to be black, of skin color.
Ici, vous avez Akhenaton, le premier prophète qui a dit que Dieu est un, l'inventeur du monothéisme.
This is the inventor of monotheism.
Yes.
The
Donc,
first to say that there was one God.
oui, c'est justement le pharaon qui a dit pour la première fois que Dieu est un et qu'on ne doit pas le représenter par une image.
This is the first Pharaoh to say that there is one God and that that God must not be represented by images.
Il était avant Moïse.
He was before Moses.
La Bible n'existait pas encore.
There was no Bible, not yet.
À cette époque-là, la pensée religieuse, encore, vous voyez, est partie de l'Afrique. C'est l'Afrique qui a initié la religion monothéiste.
And so it is even Africa that is the origin of monotheistic religion as well.
Vous voyez, ce pharaon avait 6 filles avec la reine Nefertari.
This Pharaoh had 6 daughters with his queen Nefertari.
Alors, une des filles est sur les genoux de la reine.
One of the daughters is in the lap of the queen.
Je l'ai reproduit dans l'image suivante, vous allez la voir. Hein?
You'll see her again in
La
the...
voilà,
That's
vous voyez,
right.
sur les genoux de sa mère. Regardez comme elle est typiquement africaine.
See how she is typically African.
Avec la coiffure totémique. En africain, c'est que cette coiffure est totémique.
And an African would know that this is a totemic hairdo.
Et je l'ai comparé avec un Mangbetu, qui est la femme d'une tribu africaine actuelle, pour la déformation du crâne.
I have compared her with one of the African tribes that is known for the forming of the skull.
Yeah. Ici, ça j'ai pris une publication de la revue de Ivan van Sertima,
This is
justement,
taken
et du
from
professeur Finch.
one of the reviews or journals of Dr. Van Sertima and Dr. Finch.
J'avais ces reproductions, mais j'ai préféré les prendre dans les leurs parce que ces photos sont mieux rendues que certaines que j'ai.
I chose these because they are so much better done than others that I have.
Vous voyez bien, la femme qui est à droite est la mère du pharaon que vous avez vu là tout à l'heure. C'est le pharaon Akhenaton qui est à gauche et sa mère est à droite, la reine Taï.
This is the pharaoh on the left, and this is his mother on the right. Her name is Tai.
Cette reine a joué un rôle prééminent dans la diplomatie de l'Égypte à cette époque.
This woman had a preeminent role in diplomacy in Egypt at that time.
Tous les rois dont je vous ai parlé, tous les rois télé là dont je vous ai parlé tout à l'heure, que l'Égypte avait conquis sous la 18e dynastie,
All of the kings that I've spoken to you about, who made their conquests up to the
sous la dynastie précédente,
in the previous dynasty,
oui, donc écrivait à cette femme
wrote to this woman
pour lui demander d'intervenir auprès de son fils
to intervene in these matters with her son,
pour que le pharaon les fasse entrer dans ses grâces.
so that they could be in the good graces of this king.
Donc le pharaon était encore jeune
This pharaoh was still very young.
et c'est lui, donc vous voyez bien que la mère, cette femme-là est la mère du premier prophète de la terre. Et vous voyez bien, voici la mère qui est très africaine et voici le premier prophète lui-même aussi, le voilà.
There you see this mother who is so typically African, and then you see next to her also typically African, the first prophet of the world.
Why is the history of Egypt so crucial to black people? What's at stake?
Mais parce que, comme je l'ai souvent dit, la civilisation égyptienne, d'après tout ce que je viens de vous montrer, a joué le même rôle que la civilisation vis-à-vis de l'Afrique, que la civilisation gréco-romaine vis-à-vis de l'Occident.
Because Egyptian civilization played the same role for Africa that the Greco-Roman civilizations played for the Western civilization.
Et donc, si nous voulons recréer un corps de sciences humaines en Afrique, il nous faut repartir de l'Égypte.
If we are to create a body of social sciences, then we must take as a point of departure Egypt.
Renouer avec les antiquités égyptiennes.
Tied to ancient Egypt.
C'est la seule façon, comme je le dis souvent, de réconcilier les civilisations africaines avec l'histoire.
It's the only way to reconcile African civilizations with history.
What would you say to the black parent who is satisfied with his or her child learning only European or white history?
Non, il faut apprendre l'histoire des autres, mais il faut se connaître d'abord.
It's fine to learn the history of others, but you must know your own self first.
Sinon, un peuple qui perd la mémoire historique est devenu un peuple fragile.
If a people forgets its historical memory or loses its historical memory, it becomes a very fragile people.
Il se désagrège. C'est la conscience historique qui nous permet de rester un peuple fort.
They regress, and it is that historical memory which permits them to be a strong people.
C'est pour ça que même dans la diaspora, cette conscience doit être vivifiée. Il faut que ce lien continue d'exister où que nous soyons.
Even in the diaspora, these ties must remain.
Ceci ne va pas à l'encontre des lois des différents États dans lesquels nous vivons aujourd'hui.
This can only help us make our lives better in the various countries in which we live.
La plénitude culturelle doit faciliter la fraternisation des races.
The fullness of our culture will help us in finding or seeking the fraternity among races that we must have in this world.
This man, almost with an enchanted tongue, that could unite all those diverse elements in Africa. They killed him, brutally, savagely, beat him to death. So, you know, it is the undercurrents there. You want examples of leaders, many of them are dead. We have Mandela, who is a great leader after 28 years in that hellhole of Robben Island. I was just telling them in Liverpool at the museum where Scobie went, they want a museum of slavery, that we should also look at the internal slavery on the African continent, that there were slaves from West Africa sent to South Africa, and Robben Island was set up as a prison for rebellious slaves from West Africa. That's the tradition. You see, these are all interesting things. This lady.
One cannot really underestimate the significance of the example of the Soviet Union and the former socialist state to the Peruvian people. But in the context of the breaking down of the Soviet Union and the socialist system, and in the context of the move towards privatization, how do you see that the people of the Caribbean should begin to mobilize themselves to take on a different path of development that they are on at the present moment. Secondly, I do not think that you answer the question. So I want to put it in a different format. Question to you is, how do you assess the leadership in the Caribbean that is on behalf of the poorest in the Caribbean? How do you assess that leadership at the moment? Because there are people out there who are purporting to be leaders for these people, who are the poorest. How do you assess those people?
Well, I think Scobie assessed them very well. The finest leader we have had in the Caribbean in modern times has been Maurice Bishop. Finest leader. And you know what happened there. For the rest of the, you know what Fidel Castro says, that this neo-colonialism is an anthem, a flag, and a color on the map. And we had overseers presiding over this neo-colonial thing. That's all they were. And we continue to have them. So assessing them is assessing a system in which they are caretakers for imperialism. Then you talked about that goes across the board with the Caribbean leadership. Even when they talk, saying something sensible, their actions are inexorably bound. As an aside, there was one retired American consular officer who wrote a book. I think his name was Blanchard. And in this book he said he had appointed every Caribbean leader in the post-war era up to the time that he retired. He says this. Bishop hadn't come up yet, so the book went up to the pre-Bishop period, and he was evaluating the kind of interviews he had with these leaders and prospective leaders. So assessing the leaders is assessing the situation that they lead and the role that they play and the function they serve for outside, not for the people of the region they're ostensibly leading.
He asked a question about the Soviet model, or lessons for as a model for development in the Caribbean.
Well, the Soviet system, 30 years ago, 32, 35 years ago, when I first went to the Soviet Union, invited as a guest by the Writers' Union. After just a few weeks there, I said, this society is flawed in the sense that, for one thing, it's racist. For another thing, it's dealing with the nationalities. When I went to Tashkent and talked to Uzbeks, I said in the book, and the left never forgave me until recently about this. I said they were going to have difficulties with the Soviet nationalities. That nationalism was going to rise up and knock them in the head because they were acting like colonialists with those under a guise of being socialists. That is not to say that a lot of benefits didn't accrue to us by that system. Without the Soviet bloc, our independence and movements would have been greatly hampered. We would have had to fight harder. Perhaps that would have been a good thing. But the fact that they existed, and they did help enormously countries in the third world, including South Africa and the ANC. So those things, you have to assess the total thing. If it can fall apart so rapidly, if it can self-destruct, it means that the very fabric of it was rotten for a long time, was decaying, and so it collapses. That doesn't mean that socialism is dead, as they like to say. Socialism is very much alive, but I think the locus of socialism now has moved inexorably towards our parts of the world. the new ideas for humanizing the world systems have to come from us, not from the metropoles.
We'll take about 3 more questions if they're brief. Okay.
I have a question, Slick. We find that the Africans being transported out of Africa to the Caribbean. Using the slave trade was used as a conduit for kidnapping African leadership, African leaders, indigenous African leaders, smuggled out under the guise of slavery and rendered ineffective in the war. And how much work has been done on that? How do you identify those leadership, those leaders that were smuggled out under the guise of slavery and contributed to the collapse of Africa?
Anyone of it? It's a tough point.
The slave trade and slavery, or the Atlantic slave trade, if we want to put it that way, was not motivated and moved by Africans. Many, many people took part in the slave trade and slavery and were guilty of doing things like transporting slaves. Gentiles, Jews, Brandenburg Jews, English, French, Dutch, all of them, including some African potential chiefs. But do you know one thing that is not usually exposed and said? Many, those Africans who took part in the trade themselves, they were threatened by the soldiers and the sailors and the ships that came in, that if they did not take part to produce captives for them, they themselves, their people, and they would be destroyed. They were threatened by ship's captains, and the whole, in point of fact, the Royal African Company, made up of rich men from Liverpool, from Bristol, from everywhere, they made that stipulation. And in fact, in some instances, they put that in motion. There were some Africans who went into this thing themselves, but the majority, there were threats that had been imposed, and it's only the other day I was looking it up again in the Maritime Museum. This fact is not very well known. So when we hear this question about Africans taking part in this, we want to be very careful of what took place. I'm not saying that some of them didn't, but after a while, when they stopped warring against each other, they realized what was happening. They realized the kind of situation that the Africans that were captured and taken to France, to the Caribbean, the Americas, the kind of condition in which they went and what happened to them. Then there was a great change of heart. In point of fact, there were threatened, some of the chiefs who had been doing that were threatened by others that if they continued, they would raid them. For instance, Prince Naibana's father, who owned the whole of Robana in what we now call Sierra Leone, he threatened to take over territory if that African potentate went in anymore for supplying the slave. The other thing they did, it was the exchange of bankers, beads, baubles, and all that nonsense, and brandy and rum for that kind of trade. That stopped. If it was left, again, if you read There Is a River by Dr. Vincent Harding, you will see what he says. Were it left to these chiefs, these African chiefs, to supply Africans to the British, the French, and the others, slavery would have died, the slave trade would have died a natural death in the very first few years, because this kind of thing was stopped. You must remember the initiation of the whole business of taking Africans from Africa and bringing them out to the Americas and the Caribbean was not engineered by Africans itself. It was engineered by Europeans. In point of fact, what is not very well brought out is the fact that Columbus himself made a statement, one of his very early statements, that not with the fact that Caribs and those others were too good for slavery, but he said that you would get infinitely more numbers from Africa, because he had had acquaintance with Africa himself, Columbus. And he said the same thing. It didn't come from Las Casas only, it came from Columbus as well. So this business was a very early one. And it stopped. If you look at the records, you will see that African traders and other ones were forced into this. Even the interpreters who joined the Royal African Company and so on, people like John Ben Solomon, they were forced into it because Ben Solomon was the son of a chief, of a Fulani chief, and he was a man who could speak 7 different languages. And he, in point of fact, lots of the interpreters there would give information to the people on board those slave ships who were where they were going and what was happening at the time. So consequently, they were helping their people at that same time.
Yeah, I wanted very quickly to recommend to you that you read Chinwezu, that very brilliant Nigerian scholar who wrote The West and the Rest of Us. And Chinwezu's thesis said, particularly written for blacks in the diaspora, you must understand that there was a hierarchy of classes in Africa at the time of the slave trade. 2 factors. That if you take 100 million people out of any continent, you disrupt irreparably the traditional systems of exchange, of communal exchange, of the fabric of the culture. And Chinwezu said that he researched the background of all the neo-colonial leaders in contemporary Africa, and the majority of them had taken part in slave trading. So he says there is a consistency of a certain kind of ruling element betraying its own people on the African continent.
It's either we accept that thesis, or we are saying that the handful of Europeans went to the African continent in an era when we did not have B-52s and stealth bombers, nor were there any transoceanic submarines and so on, and conquered an entire continent. We're either saying that they're supermen, or we're saying that there were internal contradictions in Africa which facilitated or made it easier for the European brigands to come in and colonize our continent. I want to take a couple of questions. I want to say a couple of things quickly, though, in terms of, because I think it's a very important question, because the crime of colonialism and slavery and so on isn't so much that the obvious things happened, but that our evolution was arrested. I mean, that is a crime, and thereby setting us, halting our development and rendering us backward, which is the situation that we find ourselves today. But the brother asked about individuals. In West Africa alone, people like Sister Yaa Asante of Ghana, who was directly involved in the struggle against slavery and colonialism, was in fact a leader who was dealt with directly by the colonialists. Similarly in Angola, Queen Nzinga, who everybody talks about, but the one thing they never focus on is that she was fighting an anti-slavery struggle. Not to mention people like Almami Samari Touré, after whose name I carry, who fought the French, and it's only just a few years ago, 1898, that he died after fighting the French successfully, fighting French colonialism and slavery in West Africa. And there are many others. What's the name from Dahomey, Ben Zahid, also a leader who was captured. Sister Roberta Kilkenny. So.
I'd like to add to that I think we need to look carefully at some of the African leaders who will call for reparations and find out whether they were the victims of slavery or among the perpetrators of the slavery.
Excellent point. Not only of the Anshan slavery, but slavery today. Because half of the leaders, the ones who were jumping out front talking about reparations, people who are ripping our people off already. In fact, we need reparations from them. We're demanding that they pay us money back. One final question, Yusuf, and then we have to wrap. Dr. Castro, a lot of people, when they talk about Moorish history, they talk about a period of 711, that whole launch of 1492. They basically say 700 years for the school. How do you argue 900 years? And the second part is,
How do you do what?
they usually state a period for Moorish school.
Yeah, yes.
700 years of Moorish school. How do you say 900 years? You said 900.
Well, the Moors say 900. That's what the Moorish histories say. So obviously they've been coming. You know, don't get hooked up on dates. Because who fixed the date? Somebody picks a date out of, European history loves dates. They find a date and they fix it in your brain. So, to cross the straits between the Pillars of Hercules, you could take a canoe and row across. So naturally, there had been communications between Africa and Spain, when Hannibal invaded. Hannibal from Tunisia went there to southern Spain, set up connection. His descendants, he had colonies along the Spanish southern coast, and then inland by the foothills of the Alps and so on. So the connections go beyond 711. 711 is just for a useful date and which pegged to hang something on.
Dr. Clark always said he had to relive his life again. He would pay more attention to himself and he would study language. I want to know what tools, in terms of future historians, what tools do they need to go beyond a Eurocentric perspective of history in terms of study of history? What tools do you recommend?
Well, they must go back to our people. It's a good question that you ask. If you look at the European historiography, what it does, I always say to my students, who was George Washington's mother? Did he just fall on the earth like a stone? You have all these great men in European history. They don't have any mothers. They don't have mothers, they don't have aunts, they don't have sisters. Ask Columbus. Columbus has not written one single word about his mother, ever. So, he must have come through a mother, unless it's some divine dropping out of the sky. So we should look at methodologies to correct this, that every man, woman, and child had a mother. You can't see them without a framework. We learned this from African and Native Americans, that you are part of a family, you are part of a community. Then you frame your character against this. And I'm doing this right now in a book about Malcolm X, where Malcolm X's visits to England, where I'm resurrecting the whole question of his Grenadian mother, who was a vital sort of link in his life. But you see all of these books, they put Malcolm without a mother. And they put out the slander, she went to a mental hospital. Yes, she did, but she was forced into this by a white judge because she was a single mother with 8 children, doing the sewing that she learned in Caribbean as a girl, staying up Wilfred, the oldest brother, till 3 and 4 in the morning, making clothes for rich white women there in Michigan. And she had a kind of nervous breakdown. When he took her to a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, he said, look, she just needs some rest. You know how it is. A single mother with 1 child can have nervous breakdowns. So to have 8 children, so I'm saying in the historiography, we have to bring people back to life. We have to frame you against a background, what you are, what kind of people you come out of. We learned this from ancient African oral tradition. As soon as you meet the African, it says, who is your father, who is your grandfather, who is your grandmother? They can't see you as like some entity that just fell out there by yourself.
That is so true. Ilambe, you have an item coming up. Why don't you come and tell us about it, rather than making the announcement. And what Brother Yankaru just said is so true. I remember in Africa, every country you went to, when, especially the elders, when they greet one another in the street, it's like for about a 5-minute greeting, itemizing the various lineage. Along there.
A little bit before, I just had to comment on the question that the brother raised when he asked, was leadership in Africa targeted? That's the question you asked. I don't think it was answered. The question you said by Europeans, and I want to put a modifier on that and say, just leave it as being targeted. And then to go back to what Roberta was saying, because I think that if it was targeted, I think in certain cases it was by other Africans who were competing, you know, in the various areas, and would be able to select out people who they knew in other villages, who they figured they could get rid of. You also had to learn to the African in their part in the European slave trade. It wasn't an African slave trade, a European slave trade for chattel slavery, in dealing with Africans, that the Africans who remained in Africa did not know what was going on this side of the land. So people always had slavery. People always dealt with, you know, trading in other people or using them as political prisoners. So they had no idea what happened when the people were then put in those boats and brought here. They had no concept of the horrendous nature of chattel slavery. But it was a factor that people did participate in. I think we have to always keep that in mind, even dealing with what Professor Scobie said, minimizing the role they might have played. But the fact that they did play a role, and that's the reason why the whole thing worked, as somebody pointed out. There's no way in the world for them to be able to go up against the people in Africa who they met, because in any area of Africa, from the north to the west to the east, south, and central, wherever they went, they found resistance by great African leaders. You know, so when we're talking about Almani Samori Touré in Guinea, Lat Dior in Senegal. We talk about Ya Santawa, Queen Prempeh, King Prempeh in Ghana. You talk about, you know, all the people in Nigeria. You know, some of the great people, particularly in the north. You come, of course, all the way to Madagascar. There's Queen Rana Malone. You know, Queen Zenga, going to Zimbabwe with Laurent Gula. You know. And Laurent Gula was confronted with Cecil Rhodes because of the invention of the Maxim gun and the Gatling gun was what changed the course of history. If you read John Ellis, I believe is his name, the Social History of the Machine Gun, it will show you that the invention of the machine gun allowed for Europeans, a small group of Europeans, to go anywhere in the world where they were numerically outnumbered and be able to bring those people to heel because they can use automatic weaponry. So the advancement of weaponry, the introduction of this phenomenon, allowed for Europeans to defeat African leaders. At the time of Chaka, so-called Chaka, you know, the great Zulu king, Europeans did not run all over Africa then because they knew that they had to deal with a person with a military genius. And after the death of Chaka, you know, he still had to deal with other people who came afterwards who could defeat them. But again, the way that the weapons developed and the way that the Europeans were able to transport their people allowed for them to conquer us. And that's one reason why we have to always remember that anybody who advises us not to get weapons is telling us, you know, how to continue this status quo. Because the weapons are what conquer us, and the weapons is what's going to free us. You know? That's just how it is. I just wanted to let you know that, as you know, we are in Harlem. We've been doing these series of programs on every Friday night. We were, you know, dealing with, in relationship with the African National Construction Movement. But in September, we started to alternate our programs. In fact, it started in August. And we are now doing things every other Friday night. And we had, for the last 3 programs we had excellent attendance of at least 300 people. Last Friday, the 4th, it was about 500 people on the question of the violence initiative planned by the federal government to use drugs on 5-year-olds, in a plan that's coming out of the National Institute of Mental Health by Dr. Frederick Goodwin, and we're trying to mobilize people against it. In this particular case, we will be doing a program next Friday called The Education and the ABCs of Oppression and Genocide. It will continue looking at that particular initiative, and some of the guest speakers will be Brother Eddie Ellis, who is a brother of Caribbean background who just was released a couple of weeks ago after 23 years in prison after being framed up. One of the most brilliant brothers in the whole system who set about a lot of the social programs and who organized the Caribbean African Unity Group. And if you want to go into prison today, you will be surprised how many people from the Caribbean are in the prison system today. I mean, this is really a phenomenal thing, because at one point we felt that if you came from a Caribbean household, you never had to worry about going to prison, because people in the Caribbean were different. We had corporal punishment and all that kind of stuff. But now you could actually float about 50 or 100 reggae bands just out of the prison, as well as soccer groups and everything else. There's plenty talent up there, and it's a concern that we need to deal with. We also have Honorable David Patterson, the state senator, who is been doing some very innovative work in dealing with the criminal justice system. We're getting ready to have hearings in Harlem on the 29th of September. We will bring Brother Adam Abdul-Hakim down to testify finally, and put these police on the spot. And we saw the Daily News headline today about this judge who had a relationship with when he was a prosecutor, with a female prosecutor. He became a judge, and the woman then brought a case before him, and she was a defense attorney, and he tried to date her, tried to restart their relationship, and she refused. She then claimed when she lost the case that it was because he prejudiced the whole situation against her. But when I saw the headline, it was exactly who the judge was, Richard Lowe, who was a judge against Adam Abdul-Hakim, who was the one who forced him in a situation he couldn't even have a wheelchair, and who we charged at that time that this relationship was going on, only to find out, that they would say they would deny it. But today the headline came out again, so it also substantiates again another thing that Adam Abdul-Hakim has put forward. We also will have Dr. Seth Farber, who is with the Network Against Forced Psychiatry, which will expose, particularly in Crown Heights area, how they have been using the courts to send young kids to foster care, and then when they get over there, put them on Ritalin, and now in the future perhaps they'll be Prozac. And most of the children they're finding out now, the young people who are on drugs today in the criminal justice system, you'll find that early on they were prescribed to some drugs. They had a drug dependency that was developed at a very early age. So these things we'll be dealing with. So we hope you will come out next Friday, September the 18th, at the Harriet Tubman School at 127th Street in Adam Clayton, Colorado Boulevard.
That concludes our session for today. We're going to ask you to stay in touch so we can let you know when the series begins. Thanks for coming out, and we hope you learned something.
Could you autograph my book?
What's your name?
My name is John.
Hi man, how was your name? I haven't seen you since. I just came in. Yeah, you just came in? Yeah.
Okay, break it up.
How much did you get on your second one? How much time you get on your second take? Second run? That's what they did? Got about 2 minutes.
Be on your way. You got 2 minutes. Be on your way.